Welcome, everyone. It's Sandra Alexei from Game Changer. Well, okay, it's the new model of relationship book, and I'm trying a new background, so things are a little weird here. Anyway, today is March the 30th, and I'm really excited because there's been so much chaos and challenging, and I've had so many people call. Everybody's going through such a hard time, and I've had many downloads, and I had to get a hold of my friend Peter, and I hope I pronounce his name right, Naroski, and I've worked with him before. It was really interesting how we met, and he's very wise in a lot of ways, okay? Very controversial, okay? Which will help people think, because I don't think there's a lot of people thinking. And the reason I'm gonna say that, and you can take it however you want, because I don't care. Because as an astrologer, okay, we have the nodes that are North Node and Gemini, South Node there. So we're looking at a higher and lower mind type of thing. We're looking at a lot of truth, versus lies, and you can see it in the collective and you can see it personally. So I wouldn't be pointing my finger at the collective, at the political parties and whatever. I'd also be looking in the mirror to see how honest you are, number one. Okay, I think that's really important. And that's all going to change in January of 2022. And I'm starting to work on that right now. So what we're doing is we have Good Friday on this Friday. We have Easter, okay? And I'm wondering what has happened to the moral fabric. Okay, Peter, what's happened to the moral fabric of the world? To me, it's gone crazy. And then I would honor all of the different kind of, there's different, like I think that the Christians have this, and there's different religions celebrate it in different ways, do they not?
Celebrate Easter in different
Yes.
ways.
Yeah. And what really is?
Yeah, they would. Now, again, right off the top, like Easter is totally a misnomer. It's a pagan holiday, which most people should know that already, right? Like you don't have to be a religious guy to know that Easter is a pagan holiday type thing. What they were really doing, all the early Christians were Jews, okay? Now, so they were celebrating Passover. Now, King Herod, who was only like half a Jew or something, and a total friggin' heathen, by the way. Like, I mean, the guy was banging his own brother's wife and stuff like that,
Okay.
and on and on and on. Like, you know, just like most of the kings, like right now, the royalty in England and Saudi Arabia, these are some of the most depraved people on the planet, right? So, you know, and that's how they get to become king, right? Like you've got to be the most psychotic guy in order to subdue everyone else that's a rival to your kingdom. And, you know, you can read Macbeth and he'll tell you how to do it. You friggin' stab the guy and blah, blah, blah. And also, if you want to be king, that means sometimes you have to kill your own brothers and sisters in order to ascend, you know, to be king, right? So the Holy Scriptures, right, known as the Bible, and that word Bible is not in the Bible, by the way. The Holy Scriptures are filled with kings, you know, or princes killing their rivals in order to ascend to be king. So this guy, you know, he was down with all the pagan holidays too. Like it wasn't like he was like some pure God-fearing Jew that kept all the commandments, et cetera, right? So Easter is an entire misnomer right from the get-go. Another thing that'll blow your mind that's a total misnomer from the get-go is people who call themselves Christians. Well, then you've never read the Holy Scriptures and paid enough attention to see that the people calling believers Christians are always the staunchest unbelievers. So they've adopted as a name for themselves what unbelievers call them. And they walk around and act all sanctimonious and stuff and say, well, Christian just means little Christ and all this kind of stuff. Well, maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But you're not commanded to actually call yourself that. The true term for someone who's a believer in God and his only begotten son, Jesus Christ, is a child of the Most High God. When the fuck is the last time you ever heard a Christian refer to themselves as that? Never. Very seldom.
A child
Very
of,
seldom.
a child of,
Child of the Most High God, right? Like, because there's
really?
many gods. The Bible tells you that there's many gods, right? It tells you. There's not just one singular God, but the singular God, the one, the singularity, the source, you know, the light, the love, the truth, et cetera, et cetera. Those types of gods, there's only one, right?
Right.
So that's when I say God, who I'm going to refer to, and then I'll leave all the Viking gods and all the other bullshit gods to the side.
Right.
So there's a lot of misnomers that are rife through the thing. So now Easter, to people who maybe haven't heard the story or don't know it correctly, it was prophesied that God was going to send his son to earth to incarnate in the flesh. It says, "In the Word became flesh and dwelt among us, and we beheld his glory, the
Right.
glory as of the only begotten of the Father, full of grace and truth." Now, all the counterfeit Bibles, which most of them are, in English, there's only one that's not counterfeit. That's the King James Pure Cambridge edition. The guys that argue the most against me for that are the most religious guys. Usually they're pastors and priests, et cetera, et cetera. Now, let me give you a bit of background about how I grew up.
Okay.
My
Yeah.
parents,
This is
yeah,
fast.
my parents, they both separately immigrated to Canada. My father had to escape, you know, socialist Yugoslavia at the time from Macedonia, which is its own country. And, you know, he had to escape over the mountains and blah, blah, blah. Then he came to Canada on a ship. And then he met my mom. My mom's family, my grandfather was an established hairstylist since the 30s. He had his own salon, 1930s. Yeah. And he was at a hair show somewhere. I forget if it was Italy, France, or Germany, right? This is back in the very early 60s. And one of the most devastating earthquakes of all time, but specifically the 20th century, happened to hit that region, the capital city of Macedonia, Skopje, which is where my mom's family lived, and decimated the city. Thousands and thousands of people dead, half the city totally destroyed. In fact, if you go there now, you know, 50, almost 60 years later, you'll see the old part of the city that didn't get destroyed, and then all modern architecture for all the buildings that got wiped out. Anyway, it turned, so everybody survived. They got in touch with some people passing through from Serbia to actually get like, this is not the times where everybody had a phone in their house, right? Like, you know, this is where you're going to the guy with a phone. Sometimes that's the guy with the barbershop. Sometimes it's the guy with the grocery store. You know, sometimes it's the downstairs neighbor, right? So anyway, they managed to get a letter off to my grandfather, who was overseas, because these people passed through, and they said, listen, we're all alive, except everything is destroyed. Everything is gone. The business is gone. The house is gone. Everything in them, totally gone. We're alive with the clothes on our back. So don't worry about us. Don't even bother coming back, because there's nothing to come back to, right?
This was when your dad was over here by now.
No, this was my mother's family. This was my mother's family. Yeah. So anyway, they ended up managing to get out to a refugee camp in Germany, and were there, I think, for 9 months. And then they flew to Montreal, and then from Montreal came to Toronto. Whereas my dad was different. His was more typical, right? You get the ship, you get to Nova Scotia, then you catch the train to Toronto, right? What is it, Pier 21? Yeah. So they ended up meeting as a result of my grandfather's employer. He had a barbershop with his wife and his 3 kids, and he hired my grandfather. He was 50 when he came to Canada, not speaking a word of the language. He was 50 and he came and started again. And there was a guy that used to come in and get his hair cut with his boss's son, which was my dad, right?
Right.
Now, that guy that was cutting my hair, or cutting my dad's hair, my grandfather says, hey, listen, I have 4 daughters. One's married and stayed behind in Macedonia. And I have 2 twins, and then one 3 years younger. They're in their 20s, like not 20 years old, like they're young. And then a younger one that's 3 years younger. He said, I want you guys to meet my daughters. So they arranged to go on a date, and they went on a date, and my dad went with my mom's identical twin sister on the date first, right? I guess based on pictures or whatever, they're like, okay, I'll take that one, I'll take that one.
Right.
And then after the first date, they switched, right? So, and then after they both got married, my aunt died, it'll be 2 years coming up in June. Wonderful lady. They had a salon business. They still have it. My cousin runs it now. My uncle's older, but anyway, they kind of met and got together. They met in Canada. Now, when you have new immigrants come to Canada, what ends up, we didn't have all these programs like they do now or whatever, right? They come in the welcome wagon, they give you everything now, right? Like they give you payroll. You're making more money than guys that are retired and that paid into the unemployment and health benefits and all this stuff. They come in, they get it handed to them freely. I'm not blaming them for 1 second. I'm just telling you how it was in the early 60s. So regardless of whether you're Italian, Polish, Ukrainian, Macedonian, whatever, you would hang out with your own community, right? Your own people, because you don't know the language yet. There's nowhere to go. Some of the guys have been there longer than you, so they'll help you get an apartment, help you get a car, get a job, all this kind of stuff, right?
Right.
So the community stays together. Now, one of my parents' friends, one of my dad's uncles back in Macedonia, he was a neurologist. He grew up to be a neurologist. And someone that they knew or whatever was already here. And this guy was a surgeon. And this guy worked at the Shouldice Clinic, where the world famous, where they operate on the hernias. And I think over the decades, he ascended up early. But because we were new immigrants, these people, this doctor and his wife, used to babysit me for my parents, because my parents were younger than them, but they loved them. My parents were like Hollywood movie stars, right? Like fucking socialites, funny, beautiful, smart, generous, helpful, like really, really great people. So growing up, like, I don't know how many nights a week I would have been out at people's places, right? And weddings. It was like every weekend of every summer, I was going to someone's wedding or someone's, engagement party or whatever, right? Like we were always around people. Now, these people, this doctor and his wife, this guy later, he ascended, I think, to run the whole Shouldice Clinic. Actually, he only died a couple of weeks ago in his 90s. But they were watching me. So their visitors and other friends of my parents, would be dentists and doctors. And then I had childhood friends, their dads and moms were doctors. And I was always being babysat and slept over with them. And, like ambassadors, diplomats, like who knows who was at these parties back in the day.
Exactly.
But as a little kid, I was exposed to this and would intently listen to the conversation of the grown-ups and all the reports from all of the adults that I've met, since I'm a kid. They would say, yeah, Peter was a great baby. You could just put him in the corner and he wouldn't fool around. He wouldn't break shit. He wouldn't run around and cry like all the other kids. So I would sit at their feet. And I didn't know at the time, but I was absorbing all this information, right? Then when you get older and you start to get a bit of comprehension, the parents will send you off to bed or tell you to go play somewhere else. But I had no interest in sleeping or goofing around with other kids. I'd go sneak somewhere and listen to their conversations, right? So I was privy to adult conversation since the time of diapers, right? And then it's I was exposed to medical doctors, dentists, scientists, like with PhDs and all this kind of stuff. Now, sometimes it was like at a campfire at someone's cottage, or at a beach. Other times it was, like I say, at these, parties and other things. Finally, when I went to university, and actually one of those people, ended up being my dentist for the majority of my lifetime. Her daughter was 1 year older than me. And it was like the first girl I ever fell in love with. I was like 4 and she was 5, right? Very shy. Anyway, her name's Lily, and she grew up, and now I think she runs the Cleveland Clinic, like for brain surgery, right? She writes books for other brain surgeons, travels the world, and all this kind of stuff. Now, everybody after this past year should know that something is wrong with the medical and pharmaceutical systems, right?
Right.
So we've been indoctrinated through television and media and just generally how people esteem doctors or people with titles,
Right.
to unquestioningly follow the directions and advice and procedures of doctors. Okay, right? So we're indoctrinated to treat them with, reverentially type thing. But to me, these doctors, they were just other visitors in my house, or I was in their house. Like, I wasn't impressed by shit, right? So,
But they're just,
as I grew, go ahead.
but these doctors, Peter, are just people. And right now,
Yeah,
we have they're just people. And right now we have this doctor that tells us one thing, this doctor that tells us another thing. And so people are confused. And where is the critical thinking? Okay.
yeah.
There's so many things going. But what was your basis for? Was it religion? Was it spiritual? What was your belief system and that type of thing?
Well, okay, so Yugoslavia it wouldn't have been a communist country back then, but it was a socialist country, right?
Oh.
Kind of the precursor to communism is what it is, right? So all of my dad only had one sister, but he had an uncle that was 1 year younger than him, right? So his uncles were basically like his brothers. Like, I don't really differentiate, that they're his uncle. They're like my uncle, even though technically they're not. So, so a lot of these guys that came from there to the West still were holding on to, Marshall Bros Tito, like the fucking dictator of Yugoslavia's doctrines, because they were already indoctrinated with this, right? And because Americans are typically, like during the Olympics, when you watch American sportscasters talk about American athletes, like, you think the whole Olympics is about America. Like, they don't have that objectivity. Like, they're totally homers going for their team, right? So but other countries are pretty objective, right? Like you get European countries, especially the Balkans, like the Slavs and stuff like that. They're more objective. They're a little bit abrasive, but they're more objective, right? So they're like, some guy scores a good goal on you. They're like, yeah, good goal. Well done, right? But, someone scores a goal on an American or Canadian. Yeah, we hate those commie bastards, right? No, it has nothing to do with that. It has to do with sportsmanship. Right. So because of this overt kind of rah cheerleading and overt sportsman, or, kind of homerism in the West, the immigrants kind of still maintain this grasp on the political ideologies and doctrines that they were indoctrinated with prior to coming to the West. So the communism basis that they had was then gradually increased by the communist feminist agendas that originated in Bolshevik Russia in 1917 and all that. I know I'm going to lose a lot of people here, but they were kind of objective. Now I lost my train of thought while I was making that point.
Like you said, that's how they were kind of programmed.
Yeah. So now,
like what was the religion? Because we want to get down.
Okay, the religion from where we came from was Orthodox. So that would be Christian, and the Orthodox and the Catholics would have split off centuries ago. And the Orthodox priests, they're allowed to get married and have wives, and they use the old calendar as opposed to the to the new one. There's a difference between the Gregorian and the Julian calendar. So Christmas for them is January 7th. New Year's for them is January 14th, right? Whereas, yeah. So,
Okay, but I need to stop you right there for the simple
sure.
reason that because we want to get to this point where people, what is the connection? The one thing that I know, because I am fascinated, I'm fascinated with what you know and how you've learned it and worked it and that type of thing, Peter, is because my dad didn't believe in any religion. He thought it was big business and the opium of society, and he believed that God was in the trees and you just did good work and you do that. Now, when you talk Orthodox, I was dating a fellow when I lived in Hawaii, okay? And so everything was all right. I mean, he wanted me to marry him and whatever. And so he was Orthodox, okay? Which I didn't know what the difference is because I'm kind of,
Yeah.
if you're spiritual, you got to be spiritual for me. So this Sunday we go to his church, I'll never forget. And he said, don't tell anybody about your astrology. Well, you know what it was like, Peter? It was like somebody just smacked me in the face. Okay.
Yeah.
And so, but that was it. But what he did explain to me was in USA is that in their religion, in the Orthodox, they didn't believe that you had to have a priest to reach God. You automatically went to that. Is that true?
Well, yeah, it is. But the thing is I grew up like based on, people fleeing socialism and adopting kind of the socialist communist agendas in the West and things like that. And having gone through the public school system and grown up watching TV, I grew up as a total atheist. I mean, I remember as a kid, you'd go to the doctor or the hospital, they'd be asking you to fill out a questionnaire. It came to religion and I'd fill out atheist right there in front of my mom, 14, 15 years old. And she'd go mental. I go, Mom, that's what I am. What am I going to tell you? So I am or was the biggest atheist to this day that I've ever met. Okay. So now I'm not an atheist now because once I started to critically examine that I'll tell you about when I started. I started September 24th, 1997, the day after I brought my 1-year-old daughter home, and I'm looking into her eyeball. And one of the years in university, I was the teaching assistant for sensation and perception receptor processes because I was right. So I know the complexity of how the eyeball works. And here I am years after graduating university. I got a brand new fresh kid in my hand, the size of a peanut. And I'm looking into her eyeball. And I remember thinking to myself, there's no monkey in this girl. Because if this girl came from a monkey, that means one of my grandfathers would have had to become a monkey. Now, the atheist unbelievers have been indoctrinated to quote these terms, and you've heard them yourself, word for word, identically. They say it's not a monkey, it's a common ancestor. Well, common ancestor of a monkey, you dumb monkey. Like that's what it is, right? So, but they're so blinded that they can't see. Now, what does it say in the Holy Scriptures who blinds people? It says, the God of this world blindeth the minds of men. That's not God. It says the God of this world. So who is the God of this world? Well, it says that Lucifer, who is the highest angel, second in command to God, in charge of the heavenly host, basically the choir, who had pipes built in him, so who knows how this guy could sing and play music. And he was the most beautiful angel, called Lucifer, the angel of light. Well, what was this guy's sin in heaven? Running shit for God. He wanted to be above the Most High God. So he got it in his head, hang on a sec, God, I can do better. Let me fucking run the show, right? So that was his sin. Now, if you really are God, you're not caught unawares that there's a fucking overthrow about to go on. You already fucking knew yesterday. So when this happens, like he gives him a chance, he's got free will, right? But he goes for it anyway. He wants to overthrow God. So him and all the other angels that he convinced to go do this, these are all supernatural beings, by the way. Right. They're indestructible and they live forever, right? And they have powers that maybe we do have, but we just don't have access to them yet. But they, like you never hear ever in the history of the world of an angel dying. Oh yeah, you hear the Archangel Gabriel? Yeah, well, he fucking died, man. He got hit in a car by a car crossing the street, like, in fucking New York City. Like you don't hear that, right? These things live forever. So what are you going to do with a guy that lives forever? Well, Jesus later said, and I saw Lucifer fall like lightning out of the sky. Boom, boom. You sin, immediately out, because you can't be sinful and in the presence of a holy God. Purity cannot have impurity and remain pure. Okay. That's why he had to go.
Okay, so can I just ask you a question right now? So right now, we have such an evil, satanic darkness, okay, in the collective. And I've been talking about this since 2007,
Yeah.
that needed
Yeah.
to be cleansed, okay?
Yeah.
So all of the real darkness has to come up. And a lot of people go, why do you talk about it? It's like, it's there. It's just like this.
Well, because now it's on the news. That's why you're talking about it.
Right, because it's there and they don't want to look at it. But, and I say, people are, and if you think they're shocked now, Peter, we have still so much more disclosure in the next few months that people might get sick to their stomach when they hear about it. However, that has to come because the light is going to cleanse it. It's a purging, okay? And I think of it as like a sewer system on a farm. I come from a farm, and you have to dumped all the time, and then you wash it and you clean it and everything. But the whole collective is that way right now. And so people are really confused, and each person has their own religion. And that's why I wanted to say,
right, this is the thing. That is key, Sandra. Each person has their own religion. So let's say there really are 7 billion people on the earth.
right,
How the fuck how are you going to count that anyway? Like, honestly, think about that for a second.
right.
Everyone says 7 billion because they were told 7 billion. You have no way of knowing. Okay. So unless you line them up and start counting. So, right. So anyway, what was the thing that you just said before?
I said everybody has,
Oh yeah, everybody has their own religion.
everybody
So
has their own religion. And so what I said to you today, because somebody put on my Facebook, it was like something about the 11 satanic rules of the earth. And I thought, like, what is all this about? And then now today you say pagan. And honestly, I had to get a hold of Peter right away. We've been wanting to do it, doing my own stuff and whatever in my healing. And it was like, no, we need to do something to assist people in maybe waking up a little bit more over this time, because I have, from my point of view, I honor everybody else's. And I say to people, and don't judge me. Don't judge me.
Did you hear about those new Nike shoes?
Oh, the new Nike shoes.
Yeah, the 666 special edition Lucifer running shoes, right? Okay. And I saw one of my friends put like a post, and I saw on the shoe box, and it had a quote from the Gospel of Luke that said what I said before, and I saw Lucifer fall like lightning from the sky, right? So when he fell from the sky, when God kicked him out of heaven down to earth, God gave him dominion over the earth. That's why the devil's the god of this earth. And who is the devil? Well, he's a liar and a murderer from the start. Okay, so he runs the show down here. Now, all you need to,
they have a drop of blood in those running shoes.
Yeah, what kind of blood is it anyway?
Yeah, we don't know, but I'm
saying, but again, this is insanity now, right? Like, it's,
why is it coming out now? That was the biggest thing, and thank God you brought it, because now what we're looking at is we're looking at Jesus. There's pictures of the cross. We have Good Friday. We have Easter. We have all of that, and all of a sudden now all this Luciferian stuff is coming out.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's get to the cross that you mentioned.
Yeah.
Right. Tell me what you know about the cross. Or just off the top of your head. Like, it's not, I'm not gonna.
All I know about the cross is that we've got a vertical and a horizontal line. Okay.
But what does it mean? What does the cross mean? What does it represent?
The cross means to me that it's a burden.
Well, yeah, you got to bear the cross for sure. But what does it mean to Christians, I guess, is my thing. What would you?
Well, I presume that they think it's really holy and it's like,
Well, they got them in all the churches and they wear them around their necks. now,
that's what
right?
I'm saying.
All right. Now, if Jesus Christ back then, and I'll tell you, in one night, they assembled 6 illegal trials that one night to fucking jam it through to send them to death row. Okay. So if Jesus Christ was executed falsely, by the way, because even the guy examining him, the governor of the state, Pontius Pilate, said, I find no fault at all with this man. And then what does he say? He said what even atheists and unbelievers and whatever religion know. He says, I wash my hands of this. Well, why was he showing everyone he's washing his hands? He said, I've examined this guy. There's no fault in him. He's done nothing wrong, worthy of death, imprisonment, punishment, or whatever. And it says the people, which was the Jews there, that were forcing this guy to kill him because it was on the Easter, the Passover, it was coming up, right? The high holiday. They couldn't kill a dude and then go and pretend and be all holy, right? At Easter dinner, break Easter eggs or whatever the fuck they used to do back then, right? So they got this guy to send the order of execution, but all the Jews watching, you had the religious guys bribe them or coerced them or excited them for everybody. It says all cried out for his blood. Okay. Even though the Roman governor in charge of Judea at the time wanted to set him free because he was not guilty of anything, they still wanted him killed as opposed to the guy that was already in jail, that was already a murderer and in jail for insurrection against the authorities, right? So they would rather let Charles Manson fucking go than have Jesus Christ, who never hurt a fly, other than throwing all the money changers out of the temple a few times that he was there, right? Because this was the precursor to the banking business. So he's in the temple and he says, you've turned my father's house into a den of thieves, a house of merchandise. And then he casts out the money changers and he's whipping them with a whip that he made, right? Out of 3 cords. He just braids it together right in front of them. And when he gets done, he starts cracking and throwing shit around, right? So that's the only time you see Jesus like kind of get irked. But these guys were ripping off the people in the church, well, the synagogue, the temple, ripping off these poor people that were coming, trying to follow the religion. You know what I mean? So he was righteously indignant. And anyway, so the religious guys and the banking guys, well, they wanted him dead. Well, did the lawyers want him dead? Well, they had just had 6 fucking illegal trials about the guy, and they couldn't catch him on saying anything wrong or illegal. Did the doctors want him dead? Well, he healed that woman with the issue of blood for 12 years. It says this woman who had spent all of her substance on the physicians, and they had made her none the better, but the worse, right? So they used up all of her substance. Well, substance is like your life substance, not just your money and your clothes and your whatever,
It's
equity.
your energy, it's your essence.
Right. So they had consumed all their substance, devoured all her substance. So this woman got healed because she knew Jesus. Everybody knew Jesus was healing people. Like him or not, guys blind from birth were being healed. And they would interview these guys and they're like, who the fuck healed you? And it's like, I told you, I don't know, it's this guy, right? How did he do it? He spit on the ground and made mud and put it on my eyes and told me to go wash up. How did he do it? I don't fucking know. And these guys are like, this guy's from the devil. And the guy's like, listen, pal, I'm blind since birth. Whether he's doing this in the power of the devil, I don't know. But it seems kind of funny that he just did the best thing for me, restored my eyesight for the first time in my life that nobody has ever done in the history of the world, aside from Jesus Christ. These guys, these religious guys, they hauled this guy's parents in to grill them. Who healed this guy? What did he do? He did it on the Sabbath. The Sabbath for the Jews is a Saturday, which means they're not allowed to work. The Orthodox Jews are not allowed to work on a Saturday. Anyway, they wanted to bust him on a technicality. They're not like, hey, great, we've seen this guy out front of the temple for the last 35 years or however long he was out there, begging for alms and money in order to survive as a blind guy 2,000 years ago or whenever it occurred.
Right.
And we're happy for them. They're like, no, fuck it, get this guy out of here. What's he doing working on the Sabbath? And Jesus is like, you guys are cranked, man. Like, and they are. He exposed them through and through. So anyway, the God of this world that blindeth the minds of men, blinds them to this very day, is the devil. It says that. It says that, right?
So that's the difference for me, that's the dark and the light. And I said, right now, for me, as is a very simple person, okay, and I started in 2007, that's when I said it was changing. That's the big transformation, is we are in a battle of the light and the dark, okay?
Yeah,
All
yeah, right? And it says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. The same was in the beginning with God, and he was the light of the world that lighteth the light of every man. He came unto his own, but his own received him not. But to as many as received him, to them gave he power to become the sons of God. Not Christians, the sons of God.
Okay, I like
the
that.
Same man, Jesus Christ, the only begotten Son of God, says, is it not written that ye are gods?
Right, because that's the divine. So my understanding is that we have a divine spark in us. And right now with the ascension process is we're moving from third to fifth to seventh. So the bottom line is it's being evolved. So our frequency is raising and we're becoming brighter lights. When you become brighter lights, you start to question all the evil and the crazies in the dark, and they don't like that. So we're having this big fight going on right now.
Yeah. So here, let me try and find what I just wrote right before you called. And I know I'm going to piss people off. I piss people off just by being me, and I always have. Right? Of the 100,000 people I've met and talked with in my life, there's a good chance you're going to get pinged by me. Right? Right? Now, I'm not pinging people because I have nothing better to do. I'm going to ping someone to help them, maybe immediately if possible, but that's seldom the case, although sometimes it does happen, but to help them because the way their lives are going up until this point are clearly and obviously shitty, okay? So it's not because I'm a bully. I don't tell Democrats the ridiculous friggin' positions and thought patterns because I hate Democrats, right? I tell them that is like, listen, you guys now are all talking all about peace, but it was the same guys a couple months ago that were walking around with t-shirts that said fucking kill Trump on them.
Right.
Like, do you not see this? Well, they don't because they're blinded by the God of this world. The light shineth into the darkness, and the darkness comprehended it not. They don't understand it. They don't grasp it. Okay.
No.
And that is going on to this day. So now that we're talking about light, I'll tell you. So I wrote this just before you called. People are quick to download light codes from when they go for a walk on a sunny day. Okay. We're all on Facebook. We've seen that. This is awesome and may indeed be true. However, these same people may not realize that a word is a light code too.
Yes.
But at a much slower vibration. So it would behoove you, meaning them, to download what I say, what I'm telling you, right? So, like, you know, and then I'm going to post this probably later. So if it goes on and it says, do you catch my drift? Because if you don't, then these are just the slow ones. Like these are the slow, my words are the slow vibrational light codes to you.
Right.
Right. So how are you going to manage with the ones that are super fast?
Right.
That you're downloading from wherever the fuck you say they're downloading them. You know?
But okay, that's another thing. So they say that there's downloading, but in order to download and in order to learn, okay, what we need to do is we need to synthesize the information. We need to embody it. And from a teaching point, I know in high school, I could have a student, they'd want to read a full page, and I'd say to them, what does the page mean? Like this is, what does this
Yeah.
mean? And they wouldn't know. So I'd say you have to chunk it. I want you to chunk the paragraph, and then you tell me in your own words, what does it mean? Because most people, again, where is the idea of the absorption, of the digestion of it, of the synthesis of it, and whatever, and they don't know. I mean, the thing about me, somebody said to me, I can't believe that you're as honest as you are and you're a teacher and you don't know where that was. I went, just because I'm a teacher doesn't mean that I have to know every city and every state and whatever. Like, why do you think that? What I do is I'm very honest. When I don't know something, I'm going to find somebody and I'm going to find out. I'm a searcher, and I was
Yeah.
from when I was young, and it's just like, and I love that, and I always will be, Peter. And if there's anything I can do for people, is for them to question, and that's their journey. And the bottom line is, like Ray Kroc said, if you're green, you're growing, you're ripe, you're rot. Every time I think about that, I see a tomato. And a tomato,
Yeah.
we're green, we are of this earth, and it's like we're of the earth, and so we get sad when there's a snowstorm, we get mad. It's like that's whatever. And
Yeah.
and the bottom line is, we know we have the cycles. I'm not gonna fight. I don't even debate with anybody anymore.
Yeah, they're measurable. They've measured them through the centuries. Like, this is so provable. It's not even, it's laughable, right? But anyway.
That's what I'm saying. And so, but the bottom line is, I know we need to continue this, and people are going to want to, because it's like, I've got a thing up for, but what I want you to do is, what could you say to people? What could you, because I was questioning it, because I put something up the other day about the cross, and I said about Jesus, and everybody tells me, well, Jesus is going to come back and save us, and Jesus is going to do this. And I guess for me, I'm kind of like, what would you say, somebody that just kind of runs,
Skeptical?
yeah,
Well, the thing is why is it going to stop you from trying to improve your day and doing the best you can do, and,
right.
and
Well,
ascending as high as you can, right?
no, and what I really believe is, and people are saying, oh, there's just Sarah Cassera, and they're going to do everything, and everything's going to be paid. And I go, are you guys crazy? Yes, there are different dimensions. Yes, there are different people there, but they're not going to save you. You've got to do it yourself. This inner journey, Peter. This is our self-discovery.
Let me explain dimensions to you. Oh, let me finish this first. Let me summarize this. Right?
Okay.
So then I asked, do you catch my drift? Right? Because I explained the slow vibration of my words. And, I said, do you catch my drift? Because if you don't, then these are just the slow ones. So how are you going to manage with the ones that are super fast? So if the truth really is inside of you, like we hear, then you'll know what I say is true, right? You'll know what I say is true. Now, before I proceed to destroy every religion in the next 5 or 10 minutes by what I tell you, that doesn't negate your belief in God and his only begotten son or his word and all this kind of stuff, right? So now we get the slow vibrations of words. And how is everything made? How is everything made? Everything we see, what is it? It is fucking light. It just, you slow it down and then it gets dense and you feel it. You speed it up.
Different particles.
Yeah. All right. Now, it also happens to say in the Holy Scriptures that God is light. Okay. So if God is light and God is the all and in all, then out of God, everything else must be produced. So out of the framework of God, whatever God is, everything else has to be made out of that substance.
Right.
So if God is light, there you go. Now I'll get to the first page of the scriptures. And I think it's the third line. Let there be light. And there was light. And God saw that it was good. That is sonoluminescence. Okay. When you shoot a frequency, sonoluminescence, which means sono is word or sound. in Latin, and luminescence is light, right? So word light, sound light. That's the first instance of sonoluminescence. Let there be light. And there was light. 20 years ago, I met a guy in my waiting room, asked him where he was from, and he was from this deep research-based city where he grew up there. All the parents had to be doctors or scientists or researchers. This isn't on any maps. This isn't on any maps, okay? He told me, he said, you will not have heard of this city. He said, because it's like Area 51 for the USSR back in the day, right? It wasn't in Russia. It was one of those other countries that we vaguely know about here because we grew up with maps. All the atlases of the world back when we were kids, all the communist countries were pink and they only had a couple cities on them. Whereas all the Western country or all the other countries that weren't communist, they had every city and river on them and stuff like that. That was so when Archie Bunker used to call people pinkos, he was calling them communists because the communist people were the ones in the pink areas of the world atlas map.
Oh my God.
Pinkos, right? So God says, let there be light, and there was light, right? Later on in that first chapter, he tells you on day 3, he hangs the sun and the moon and the stars in the firmament. The firmament divides the waters above from the waters beneath and the waters beneath the waters, right? And puts them in the firmament. Why? It says they were given for signs and seasons and for keeping time, right? Signs, well, there's your astrology right there, signs. So now if you're a Christian, you're going to tell people, oh no, don't touch the friggin' zodiac and follow all the constellations that everybody has done, statistical stuff on it, that guys born on this day, they exhibit these types of things, and we have centuries of data for it. We're not even talking about the Akashic records and the magnetosphere and all these other places where this kind of stuff is stored, right?
Right.
So anyway, so day 3, he makes the sun. Well, all the light we see doesn't come from the sun. It comes from God. Some of it comes from the sun. Some of it comes from the moon. Some of it comes from the stars. All right. Some of it comes from the fish at the bottom of the sea, 7 miles deep, that have never seen daylight. They glow. They have bioluminescence, living luminescence, light, right? Living light, right? So anyway, so now it goes on later in the first chapter and it says, and God made man, let us make man in our image. In the image of man made he them. Male and female created he them, right? In the image of God. So not males and females, male and female, which means everybody contains within their own selves the masculine and the feminine.
That's right.
Now, right? Now, you can prove this scientifically by any kind of fetus, right? You can see, from the time of fertilization when the sperm hits the ovum, and the first embryo comes or whatever. And as it goes along through gestation, if something switches, in order for you to have been a woman, then your collection of cells that were now subdividing in your mother's womb become female, and my cells become male. So the same cell structure at that point in gestation now will end up, the ovaries will retract and up into your abdomen, right? And your clitoris will retract into your body, and your foreskin will be the hood around the clitoris. And if you look at a clitoris, it looks like a tiny dick, okay? Now, I've seen some of those Brazilian broads on porno on the internet, man, and those guys' clitorises, or they're women, they have vaginas, they have breasts, they have everything. Their clitoris is bigger than some guys' dicks, actually. So, they're biological freaks of nature, anomalies anyway, right? So, but a clitoris is basically a miniature penis. And then for me, that same cell structure, the testes will descend externally, right? So that's the correlate to the ovaries, and the testes are the biological correlates between masculine and feminine. They drop down externally into the scrotum, and the cells that make the penis, as opposed to the clitoris, they expand and enlarge further. And we all know the dimensions on the list of sixes that all the women have nowadays of their 6 sixes of a perfect man, like $100,000 job, a 6-figure salary, 600 horsepower car, 6 feet tall, 6-pack, 6 inches or greater, all this kind of stuff, right? So I'm poking fun that women want those cell structures to be bigger, right? So anyway, but it differentiates itself. So all of us have the masculine and feminine contained within us. And now sometimes hermaphrodites are born, et cetera, but that's all contained within us. So later on in the scriptures, it says that God is light, love. God is love. God is love. Do you know I've asked 50, 60 pastors, priests, clergy, deacons? Not one of them know conclusively if those words are in the Bible, right? God is love, those specific words. I asked unbelievers and they know or they guessed right. But any super religious guys I've asked never told me the right answer. Otherwise, I would know the guy's name and say, yeah, except for this guy, Pastor so-and-so, or whatever, right? Father so-and-so. Except Father kind of sticks in my craw because Jesus, I think in Matthew 23:9, he says, and call no man on earth your father. But all the priests call themselves Father in direct disobedience to the document that they claim to believe and follow. Hypocrites. This is why people don't like religion, because it's wrong, right? God's not wrong.
No.
Otherwise, he can't be God.
Right. I think God's not wrong, and it's just many, many different names. But we need to tie this up, Peter.
Okay.
And I want to thank you. And we
So
need,
God is love.
we
God
do
is love.
need to do another one. God is love. And then what can we do to have some kind of what's the word? Not be a hypocrite at Easter, or what what can we do for ourselves and for, I call it the divine or God or whatever.
Well, look around there at your relatives or whatever you're doing, or if you're outside, look at the trees, look at the birds, how they fly, look into your kid's eyeball, look at someone and look at the endless miracles of what they're doing. Like, what do you think we're doing here? I'm vibrating, my vocal cords and kicking out air, and it's hitting your ear, and there's little bones that transduce that into electrical signals, and you understand what I'm saying, and you respond back to me immediately. That's a friggin' miracle all day long. This did not happen out of a big explosion in outer space, right? No. So we are divine, and it says we're made in God's image.
Right.
All right. Okay, well, what was the image of God again? Love. What was the image of God again? Light.
Light.
What was the image of God again? Good. What was the image of God again? Truth. What was the image of God again? Gratitude. Okay, so you want to know the divine this Thanksgiving? Be thankful for everything. For your brother-in-law getting drunk and saying stupid shit, be thankful. At least you have a fucking brother-in-law and you're on the right side of the turf. You're sucking air out of the land of the living, and you're about to gorge out on a fucking meal that you're gonna, that's laden with toxins, right? But anyway, that's a different story. So what you want to do to embody the divinity or the divine, is take my divinity from me unto you that I got from God, and be grateful and thankful. And I'm thankful for all of you who actually took the time to tune in and listen to me yap today, right?
Oh,
Thanks.
Peter,
yeah.
I thank you. It's just like every time that we connect, it's just like it really is good, because it makes me think. It makes me, it makes me more open, because I will forever, I call myself an advancing soul. I'm in my 70s now, and I'll be that way probably when I'm in my 90s, because life to me, I have to be engaged in it.
Yeah.
Of light. And
it's supposed to be fun. What do you think? God sends us down here to grind it out in a toxic environment while the devil and all his minions try to kill us at every turn since before we're born? And, and he sends us down here just to endure hardship and bullshit? No, man, he wants us to have fun. He wants us to grow. Because if you're not growing one way or another, intellectually, spiritually, in your love, in all aspects, then you're dead. Well, what we have now in the world are dead men walking. They don't know the truth, which is God,
Right.
right? So then they can be lied to, and they follow the 12 satanic rules or do whatever other nonsense they do. But
Well,
I
and
didn't mean to keep this, Sandra, but thanks for this.
I always say is, to me, they look like zombies just walking around. Their hair is nice, they got the jewelry, they got the clothes, but I don't see any light. I don't see any vibrance in their eye.
Yeah,
Anything.
they're dead men walking.
Exactly, like I always say, zombie. Anyway, thank you so much.
All right.
Have a happy Easter.
Yeah, and go with God.
Everybody, thank you so much for listening. And I'm going to now stop.